All right. Well, it looks like we have enough to get started, and then as folks are able to chime in, we'll continue on from there. But I'll go ahead and do roll call. Lyda Scoggin,
Here.
Kaylee Benz. Got you, Kaylee. No problem. Okay. Danny Steyer. Gotcha. Paula Johnston. Gotcha. Greg Walsh.
I'm here.
Gotcha, Greg. Thank you. And Trina Cunningham.
Here.
All right. We have additional participants, Mickey Trammell, Sherry Pryor, Kest Porter, Judy Chenoweth, and Nancy Presser. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. First order of business, approval of today's agenda. I have a motion.
I move to approve today's agenda.
Thank you, Lyda. And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Danny. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next order of business is the approval of the April 15th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I'll move to approve them.
All right. Thank you, Lyda. A second, please.
I'll second.
Oh, Paula, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right. Next item, any public input from anybody not on the steering committee? Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns they'd like to address with the steering committee? No? Kest, Sherry? No? Good.
Not today, thank you.
Okay. No problem. All right. So today we have Judy Chenoweth with us from the Almanor Foundation. So the Almanor Foundation, I know we've talked a little bit about the Almanor Foundation here and there, and just sort of some of the opportunities that the Dixie Fire Collaborative has had to work with the Almanor Foundation. But I know at the request of some on the steering committee, of just trying to understand better what the Almanor Foundation is currently pursuing, general mission and purpose, and some of the initiatives that they're championing as a community foundation here in Plumas County, sort of a once around the world. I know that Greg attended the housing initiative meeting that they had at the end of June with myself. And Judy was kind enough to devote her time to the organizational summit. So she came down to join us there and kind of get tied in to understand sort of these spheres that we're in, not only in the sort of the post Dixie Fire recovery effort sphere, but then just in general, how things are working in our county overall, and some of the things that the Almanor Foundation, what they started as their initial premise, sort of how they got thrown into fire or disaster recovery, and then sort of filling some needs around COVID recovery as well. And then now sort of as they look across the horizon to some of their other initial goals. So that was a little bit of an introduction, Judy. I'm sure you can explain it much better than I can, but by all means, the floor is yours, just to provide some information on the Almanor Foundation. Thank you.
How much time do I have? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, great.
I think would be
Thank
good.
you.
And then we'll open it up for questions.
Sure. So I thought, hi, everybody. Nice to see your faces. And some people that I haven't seen for a long time, like Paula. It's great and nice to see people I know and people I'd like to get to know better. So the first, I thought I'd start out by just saying what a community foundation is, because it's in my former life, I worked with a consortium of foundations. And in the beginning, it was very confusing to me to understand that there are lots of different types of foundations. So a community foundation, basically its job is to bring money in from the community and put money out into the community. That's the easiest way to explain its function. Community foundations typically have an area that they focus on. So we started out really, because of the fire, just focusing on the sort of the Greenville, Indian Valley, and the Almanor Basin. But as we move forward, we think of our area as Plymouth County. So we're a community foundation for Plymouth County. That's what makes sense. And we came into being after the Camp Fire, because the chamber here in the basin was trying to respond to the needs of essentially campfire refugees, and had a really hard time doing that, because the chamber didn't have resources to really do much. So Susan Briner, our founder, was then president of the chamber, and she felt it would make a lot of sense to create a community foundation to better be able, a 501c3, right, to better be able to take money in and give money out. So we formed a steering committee, and eventually we became a sub-fund of North Valley Community Foundation until we could get our own 501c3. And the fire happened, and it just kicked us into really fast growth. The foundation, the Almanor Foundation, like many other community foundations, has several different functions. The first function, and the most common among community foundations, is to create and manage funds. So, for example, and these funds could be from individual donors, or they could be from multiple donors. So when the fire happened, the Almanor Foundation created the Dixie Wildfire Fund, and created a way in which people could donate to that fund, and that fund was our responsibility to manage as a community foundation. So there's a lot of fiscal responsibilities that a community foundation has to manage funds appropriately. We haven't yet started to have endowments, but most community foundations do have endowments, and they have donor advised funds where an individual will give a certain amount of money for the foundation to hold, and tell that foundation how they want that money spent in the community. So funds, we create and manage funds, and donor funds are very common among community foundations. And right now, the only donor fund we have is the Dixie Wildfire Fund, which has multiple donors. We also provide fiscal services to organizations and groups. So we have various funds that belong to organizations and groups that have a particular purpose. And those funds, they come to us and say, would you please manage this money for us? So for example, we have a Chester Cemetery Fund. And there's a group that came together after the fire that wanted to replant trees around the cemetery that got basically the whole surrounding area of the cemetery was burned. And so they came to us and said, we want to fundraise. We want to ask people to give money to improve the landscaping around the cemetery. And we want you to manage that fund for us. So the money comes to us, we manage it. It's essentially a pass-through fund. So the money comes in, and when they need it, the money goes out, and we take a small fee for doing that service, that fiscal service. And right now we have, I should have looked it up, but we have about 5 of those types of funds. The cemetery fund, we hold the money for the fireworks, and we have several other funds like that. So create, manage funds, sort of a big fiscal part of our life. The second function is we make grants. So that's putting the money out into the community. And the main vehicle that we had post-fire to make grants was the Funders Roundtable, which consisted of North Valley Community Foundation, Plymouth Bank, us, and the Dixie Wildfire Collaborative, and there were a few other, trying to think of who else. In the beginning, there were more, but as they spent out their funds for wildfire recovery, the group got smaller and smaller. So right now, it's Dixie Wildfire Collaborative, North Valley, and the Almanar Foundation. And our wildfire fund grew up to over 800,000. And we have, and you know, money's gone out and come in and gone out and came in. I can't give you the total. It was somewhere close to $1 million. Right now, we have about 300,000 left in the fund. So we've made joint decisions with the Funders Roundtable about how to make grants, and we've had numerous grants to Greenville, the Greenville area, along with a few grants to the Basin area. The third function that a community foundation does is it initiates programs or initiatives based on community needs. So after the fire, it was obvious that there was housing was a high priority need in the Greenville Indian Valley area, and it wasn't just replacing the houses that we lost. It was really trying to deal with workforce housing as a major problem in general. So what we decided to do was to contract with LMNOP, Tyler Pugh, who I'm sure all of you know, to help us develop a strategic plan, an assessment and a strategic plan relative to housing. And so we're in the middle of that. We did a planning contract, and now we're in an implementation contract with Tyler, with LMNOP. And we're in the process of moving the initiative from just inside the Almanar Foundation out into a housing council, Plymouth Housing Council, that will have employers and other representatives from other entities that will have the ability to make decisions. And the Almanar Foundation will use money from the wildfire fund to staff that and share it initially, but probably after 6 months or so, the council will select its own chair, and the foundation is committed to staff it for 12 months. We did have an initiative, a second initiative called the Town Plaza, that was focused exclusively on the Chester Park. And as a part of that, we did fundraising. We did some events, fundraising events to bring in some resources to put up the ice rink in Chester Park. And we, along with the chamber, pursued a partnership with the county, which hasn't yet come to fruition. And that initiative has now passed over to the chamber. We're continue to be want to be involved in any way we can to support the effort to create a public-private partnership with the county around that park. But the leadership of that effort is now housed in the chamber. One more thing I'll say, and then open for questions. So we create and manage funds, we make grants, and we have initiatives. And currently, the initiative that we're focusing on still is housing. We also do some convening, and we also have partnerships as we have time and energy available. Right now, we have 6 board members. A board member just recently resigned, and those we normally have 7 to 9 board members. Myself, I'm the chair. Susan Briner is vice chair. Julie Childers is our treasurer. The other members of the board are Tom Greeley, who is a physician connected to Seneca, and Catherine Sansone, who is a marketing PR person, and Josh Huddleston from Greenville. We'd love to have more representation from Indian Valley and Greenville, and we're currently changing our board member donation policy to make that more possible. So let me stop there. How is that on time?
Yeah, that's great, Judy. Thank you. And thanks for the background and the information. Yeah, so great on time. You got it down.
So questions, I'd love to answer questions. I know that we've had several people and organizations from Greenville come and talk to us about applications for grants. And we're always open to have conversations. But right now, what we're mostly focusing on is the housing initiative. Because the only fund, remember, the only fund we have is the Dixie Wildfire Fund. So grants, applications that come into us have to be connected to the fire in some way or another. Questions?
Yeah.
Hi, Trina.
Hi, Judy. So I have a question. As a newer member of the Dixie Fire Collaborative Steering Committee, I've been kind of swirling with how we prioritize, the funding that we have and the work that needs to be done in our communities. And I know that housing, I think, remains the outstanding need, as the Almanor Foundation has identified. And just in my mind, I've worked a lot with different funders, and I know that they really love collaborative applications. And Paula's here from Plymouth Rural Services. But how can we work together? Is there a way that we can collaborate together better, or is it kind of better to work separately but towards the same projects? Do other people have thoughts about that, or what has the Almanor Foundation, have you had discussions like that?
We have. I mean, we've had 2 experiences with partnerships. One with Seneca, our hospital district, and 2 with the chamber. And we've learned a lot, right? Which is a nice way of saying that it's a challenge, and we've learned a lot about it. And we're open to partnerships. So, for example, if the DFC wanted to focus in some way on housing, we would immediately, want to develop a partnership around that, and would want, the steering committee, a member of the steering committee, to serve on the housing council, right? So yes, we would love to partner. If it's around another topic, that requires us to think through, as an organization, our time and energy, and think through how that works with our mission and our goals. And the other thing I should say is that we just had a retreat. And one of the things that we're struggling with, which I know will not be news to any of you, is just burnout issues. We have a working board, right? And we have one full-time staff member, and we're currently seeking to have a couple of other consultants who will help us with particular pieces of our work. But what we're feeling right now is that it's very hard for us to take anything else on. We're just feeling overwhelmed, and we need to we need to focus a little more on our infrastructure and our policies, and get a lot of that in shape. We're just growing like anybody else. Yes.
Yeah, and that being said, I don't know that the Dixie Fire Collaborative has actually actively pursued applying for grants, or even if that's something that we as an organization want to do for some of the same reasons, and reasons we may never have voiced yet. I don't know.
Right. But I guess the message I want to send is we are completely open to partnering and collaborating with a Dixie Fire Collaborative, and have whatever conversations it takes to get clear on how we could work better together. Other questions? Yes, Danny.
Yeah, I guess I'm troubled and confused and don't understand exactly how the Almanar Foundation is quote unquote solving our housing problem, or approaching to solve our housing problem under the planning of LMNOP. I've heard some suggestions that they're advocating multiple mobile homes and then putting an ADU or something else on the property, and wondering how that's can get people really to afford that. And so I'm just kind of, I don't know, have the whole detail on that plan, and I think that would be a good thing to know from, especially if we're here also looking into our housing.
Right. Thank you, Danny. That's a great question. As we all know, building workforce housing is a very complicated matter. And what LMNOP did for us was a very thorough assessment of housing needs, and developed a strategic plan, which is available. I can get any or all of those materials to you as you might want them. And we're now in the implementation phases of that plan, and we have a two-pronged approach. Okay, the first is to do something right now, which is to demonstrate that that workforce housing can be built. We're looking at a particular zoned site called the 7R site, which allows for 2 single-family homes and an attached dwelling unit, an ADU, on a particular site that's zoned 7R. And the hard part, Danny, and this is where we've been stuck for months, the hard part is developing a financial model that makes it possible to build and maintain affordable housing over about a 5-year period. Because if you just build something and you don't have deed restrictions, or you don't figure out a way to make it affordable, then people who are, at 150% or higher of the average median income are the only people who can afford it, number one. So that stretches your affordability. And number two, if you don't have some deed restrictions or some agreements with the property owner, then the asking price of that house is going to go up because housing is so scarce. So right this very minute, we're working on a financial model that will help convince us and a lot of skeptics that it is possible to build this kind of housing in our communities that people want. So that's kind of where we are. Good question.
All right, thanks for the quick snapshot. Yeah, appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, are you actively engaged in fundraising at this point?
Not actively for the Dixie Fire Fund. We're working, we have an annual event that we try to do some fundraising for our own operations, to try to have staff and keep ourselves going. And we do, at the anniversary of the fire, we do online and through social media, offer people the opportunity to continue to donate to the fund. If you go to our site, thealmanarfoundation.org, you'll see how we online create opportunities for donations.
I have a follow-up, Judy.
Sure.
Is that transient or permanent workforce housing?
It depends. There's a huge need for both seasonal workforce housing and permanent workforce housing.
Okay, but you're looking at
Yep.
both.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Greg.
How's this going so far? I mean, like, have you purchased an R7 package? Have you found anyone who is willing to donate it? With the meeting that I attended, you were looking at people to donate it. And I mean, what's the level of support versus skepticism that you've gotten so far in this plan?
Well, I'd say most of the skeptic we've had, if I had to guess, I would say that we've got a 60-40 split with 60% of the people who hear about it saying, oh, I don't think this is going to work. Right. And about 40% of the people saying, this sounds like an idea that we should continue to explore. And I think the biggest stumbling block has been the financial modeling. And right now, it's even more important than having a site, because we've got to be able to demonstrate to skeptics, hey, this is how the money is going to come in. This is how we can actually make it affordable and where the money is going to come in. So, and it's going to require public funding and private philanthropic dollars, both, to make it happen.
In the model, for temporary, for like Summertown, right? You had
Right.
the transient. What happens in winter when Wintertown comes around? How does whoever's investing in this make the payments if he's only getting the person's only getting 6 months of income off a 12-year mortgage or 12-month mortgage?
That's a really good question, and I think the property owners in Canyon Dam, which is where we've been looking for seasonal housing, those property owners need to be convinced that there's a financial model that works for them. But
that model doesn't exist yet, right?
Pardon me?
That model doesn't exist yet.
We're working on it even as you speak. In other words, even as we speak, we've got LMNOP and some subcontractors who are working on that financial model, because that was the clear thing that we heard from the council meeting on March 22nd. A lot of skepticism about how are you really going to make this work so that property owners can get the money that they need, and B, contractors can get the money that they need so that that housing stock remains affordable for at least a 5-year period. Right? Tough. This is not easy. If it had been easy, we would have solved this problem a long time ago. But good questions, really good questions. Really good questions.
My last one on this one last one is like, what about California real estate law and tenants' rights? And if you have an issue with somebody, and now you're doing what? I mean, because the stuff that I've read from you, it said that that there's going to be some sort of a board that decides who can and cannot rent. You're going to decide who the tenants are. Maybe I didn't understand that right. You know what I mean? But or who's eligible or something like that. And
one of the things
right. But if a tenant goes south, if something goes south in the relationship with a tenant, I mean, I have somebody selling a house on the street that I live in Quincy. They bought it early in the winter, you know what I mean, like last winter, and they're selling it because they lost their job. So, you know, when things, I mean, this was like a homeowner. So how do you protect somebody in that case?
Well, you've asked two questions, okay? And I don't know how much
Mhm.
time I have left, but I'll try briefly to answer both of them. Okay, the first one has to do with renters. And
Mhm.
and there's a dearth of the property management function, rental management function in the
Yeah.
basin and in our county in general. And, you know, partly that is, I mean, I can tell you, I can describe, I don't know, maybe at least 8 rental units in the basin that I know are empty right now, which would be eligible for workforce housing, but the property owners don't want to rent them, right? Because of the problems with tenants and eviction problems. And
Exactly.
and we tried asking LMNOP to come up with some models, institutional models that would try to address that problem. And we haven't found a model yet that seems to fit with the community, right? So one of the things that you were talking about that, you know, was an idea that we put out that doesn't fit. So this is one of the problems that the Housing Council is going to have to address. If we're serious in our communities about increasing workforce rentals, we've got to solve the property management problem. It's not like there aren't answers. There are answers. But there are answers that have to be community-wide and institutionally addressed. We can't just, you know, say, hey, you know, let's go to a real estate agent and manage his properties. We have loads of property managers in the basin, but they don't manage permanent rentals. They only manage vacation rentals, right? So these are tough problems, but the only way we can solve them is by doing research and by talking to each other and trying to come up with some ideas that might work in our community. Otherwise, we're just gonna, you know, hey, it's too complex, let's forget it, you know? We can't do that.
Yes, Judy, and again, like, you know, I think by broadening sort of the point of view to a variety of different organizations, just like the DFC or PRS or any others within the county, and when, you know, you hit some speed bumps or even some roadblocks where you don't have the answers, by broadening that perspective, that hopefully those, you know, the hard part and the answers to the tough questions start to emerge, because there's, you know, whether it's housing or anything else, there's plenty to, you know, get in line to tell you how something's not going to work. But few have solutions for how things can work. And I attended a meeting the other day hosted by the Sierra Institute on economic development, and housing was the #1 thing that was brought up across a myriad of representatives in that population. So the Sierra Institute there hosted everybody from the Forest Service to FRC to there was the Air Quality Board out of Eastern Plumas County, a number of folks. And we talked, it was a 2-hour meeting, and for the first 30 to 45 minutes, there was a question that was posed, but it all went back to housing. So it's definitely something that folks are grappling with. And I think those are the avenues to where the Almanor Foundation can try to pursue and recruit personnel for the Housing Council, the county-wide Housing Council, so that, you know, by trying to look at things that haven't been done, and to innovate a little bit to get after this. Are there, just in the interest of time, not that I don't want to cut this short, but are there any other pressing matters or questions specifically for Judy at this time? And this can also always be followed up at another time or via email and things of that nature.
Absolutely. Again, reiterate, I'm grateful to be able to come here and see your faces and talk a little bit about the foundation. I think in the beginning, you guys were flat out and we were flat out. Now we have some time to talk to each other more, talk about how we can work together.
Well, any saved questions? Good. Okay. Judy, thank you very much for your time. You're more than welcome to continue to listen in and participate in the meeting however you wish. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda items. All right, so DFC coordinator update. Thank you again, Judy.
Thank you
Um,
very much.
The Dixie Fire coordinator update, and the first item there is the Dixie Fire Canopy Project grant request. So more than 2 weeks ago now, on the April 15th meeting, we were joined by Michaela Trammell, the executive director of the Dixie Fire Canopy Project, with regard to a funding request of $100,000 to support the Dixie Fire Canopy Project. In that time, I know that there's some additional questions and background requested to Mickey on just the scope and the outcomes desired from the grant request. And some of that did transpire via email. However, Mickey has joined us again just to help clarify any of your additional questions. So with that, Mickey, did you want to state anything, or did you want to kind of bring everybody back up to speed on kind of where you're at?
Yeah, hi there. Thank you for having me. Sorry I can't use my camera today. Today was the first day of getting out there and getting these trees into the people's residences and things like that. So it's been kind of a crazy day. We were able to, with it being the kickoff of planting today, we were able to get 12 trees and 6 shrubs out to properties. However, we had a multitude of setbacks, and it was the day that we realized everything that we had forgotten and needed and organizational things. So we're going to be right back at it tomorrow with hopefully a little bit better prepared. The emotions across the board were very thankful, very excited, I got instant text messages and everything like that of these trees are beautiful. The boys are wonderful. Your crew is just so amazing. So I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of an update on that and to answer any further questions that you all may have.
So I don't want to speak for anybody, but I think one of the concerns, Mickey, was again going back to the funding amount in relation to the funding that you've already received, right? So by a rough estimate, the last time we talked, you were in the order of around $60,000 plus or minus for the funding that you've received thus far. And to the scope of which your project is now underway, you've completed, as you just said, some of the plantings as of today, and then you're able to showcase some of your other the trees as not necessarily planted, but at least presented in front of certain commercial areas, whether it be the spot or adjacent to. So at this point, the additional funding of the $100,000 gets you what that you don't have right now. And if I'm not explaining that very well for some of the steering committees, by all means, please fill in the blanks there. But what is it that what does that $100,000 get you that you don't have right now?
Okay, so if I was to break it down, let's say with the $45,000 that the Arbor Day Foundation has provided, you know, they funded 80%, 20% was retained upon project completion, was what was supposed to happen. However, they put the full $45,000 into our bank account. And so I went and I talked to them about that. So that being said, there is about a little under 20,000 left of that amount, which will go into another purchase of trees, which purchased about 76 trees with the first $17,200. So the goal right now is to get these. We've got the AFWD providing wages, but that's only going to be a 16-week program. And then one of those employees is at 50%. So we pay their wages and then the AFWD reimburses us for 50% of those wages. There's things that we're finding are absolutely necessary. There's a trailer kind of issue we've been, renting or borrowing, and that kind of gets a little muddy when somebody needs their own trailer back. So that's one of those things that we had talked to PG&E about of purchasing with the $10,000 that they'll be giving us, which we have not received so far. So we received the $45,000 from the Arbor Day Foundation, $5,000 from Rotary, which was retained, which I do believe we still have about $1,200 left of those funds to be able to use. I just have to submit invoices for the signs and things like that. And then there's promotional materials. I have somebody who's been donating all of her time for marketing resources of website development, social media development, everything like that. And I would really like to get her paid for her time. She's been with us since about August of last year. And it's just one of those things where she keeps going, but she hasn't received any kind of money. She's just going on faith at this point. And then again, as always, it's going to be the trees, it's going to be the shrubs, it's going to be the delivery fees at 9% of everything that we purchase. It's going to be the soil from Feather River Materials. It's going to be gravel for the deep root watering, irrigation, deer fencing, everything, deep root watering, irrigation. Let me clarify that. And then it's going to be everything needed for these trees to thrive.
All right, well, we'll go Greg, and then I think Lyda may also have a comment.
Yeah, so 2 questions. One is like kind of, and I may have this wrong, reading through the emails that you were doing with Dan, it seemed like you were getting more potential clients signing up. Is that correct? Like how many?
Yeah, we
how many
have.
signups for residences do you have now and commercial? I mean, and because what I saw, it looked like you're already over budget for $100,000. You got more people signed up.
Right. So that's why we're putting them in multiple phases. Yeah. So, oh no, we
how are you
should
gonna
have
get that
only about
other
40
money?
additional. So we should have about 40 additional.
Mhm.
Can you hear me okay?
Okay.
Okay.
I sort of stepped
So
on you
we
for a
have
second. Go
people
ahead.
signing up left and right. It is getting to the part where I had to close the first phase of planting until I could approach other prospects for funding. I did speak to the Retreat and Keep America Beautiful foundations on Friday. So we're looking into partnering with them as well. However, with the way things work, things go slowly. So we were officially closed for the first phase of planting in about March. So I closed that phase so that no more people could get onto the first phase, and we would complete exactly what we promised to do in the first phase, and then we would move on to the second phase. But then people just keep pouring in. They keep sending. I couldn't even tell you right now. I couldn't tell you how many signups because I haven't had a chance yet to even plug everybody in that's in my text messages, emails, and things like that. So I still have probably about 15 people that I need to go and plug into my sign up sheet before I could have another accurate number for you. That being said, we're always actively looking for funding. And the Arbor Day Foundation did say that they would offer ongoing support for the next 3 to 5 years as people are rebuilding. So that's one of those things where they're hoping to come through, and as we need to be able to buy more trees, I'm hoping that they'll step in if we can't find another funding source that's more local. However, I do want to make sure that I am reaching out to any and all local entities that would hope to get their hands involved in this. As it is our own community, it is our people, shouldn't be mainly funded just by an international funding source.
You want local funding, not just an international or a national level organization. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, sir.
But you're not getting any funding from any of the people delivering the trees or receiving the trees.
You mean like the survivors and things like that?
Yeah. Whoever's receiving the trees, that's all free to
Uh,
them, but you want local funding from from something else, from
yes,
some other
yeah.
source.
So I guess no, we have not received any donations from any local people who are rebuilding in the area. But again, we're not trying to badger that they should be funding it. I mean, it's kind of hard for me because I have reached out on many occasions with, events and funding and requests on Facebook and things like that. And what I'm finding is that, like, in our community, you've got certain businesses that will definitely donate to your cause or things like that. But I haven't noticed a lot of people donating out of their own pockets as much as I would like to see. So that's something I have to look into personally about some sort of funding platform, donation requests. I think that's probably a downfall that I have myself, where I'm not asking in the appropriate ways, or I'm not planning in the appropriate ways. I have, I've gone door to door at local businesses in Quincy, and I've dropped off donation request letters, and we've received a few donations from local businesses. However, it's just not anything that would be significant to make a dent in our funding requests.
Yeah, I mean, I like your project, and I think that it's I mean, a lot more trees than you've got scheduled could be used. You know what I mean? And I'd like to see be like some sort of really sustainable model, because there's lots of fire impacted communities that could use this, not just Greenville. I mean, I think that you could be a bigger nonprofit,
Right.
But I'd like to see like sort of the business model. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good idea, Mikhail. I just think I'd like to see the business model worked out a little bit more.
All right.
Okay.
We'll go Lida and then Danny.
So two things. One, you're still asking for the full $100,000 now. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, are you in communication at all with the resource conservation districts? Because they have a big operation to provide trees. I know they're mostly evergreen. My brain just froze, but anyway, I don't know if you're in cooperation with and able to inform people who are looking for trees that there are some other possibilities.
I have been in contact with the multiple RCD districts, such as Tehama. I did a grant writing workshop with Riley Wills over there in Tehama County. And then our local Feather River RCD. However, they do focus on those coniferous trees, so we don't fall in the same kind of scope as they do. They do a lot of work, the reforesting, the properties that lost multiple wooded acres, things like that. And we're doing deciduous shade trees, fruit trees, things of that nature. So it doesn't align as well as we would hope. And I think that's kind of where I had her sending people my way to sign up for our program. But at some point we kind of lost contact in there once we weren't on the same level scope of planting.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I know they are doing some individual properties, but they're not. I mean, again, they are the conifers rather than the deciduous trees.
All right, Danny, on to you.
Yes, so Michaela, I'm still want to get an idea of phase one, first phase here. How many private, how many commercial, how many trees? What is your need to complete, and from a dollar's point of view, for your first phase? And especially speaking of, you got at least $63,000 committed. to that?
Yeah, so on that spreadsheet there, you would see a page break that shows exactly how many properties we could take on. It's the one in blue. So that shows the end of phase one. Again, I'm anticipating that the money from the Arbor Day Foundation and FedEx is going to complete that phase. We were hoping to work in 2 phases per year, but it's looking like with the amount of signups, we're going to want to put a 3rd phase in there as well if we can gather the funding. So our next phase is going to be as soon as we can get these 76 trees that we have in the ground. Of those, 12 were placed today. And so it's looking like we should have a pretty quick output with the crew that we have. So you should start seeing those trees and everything that they're, you should start seeing those all along Main Street, Highway 89, everything like that. I've broken down the amount of trees in the budget for you. So that's kind of, that's one of the, I had budgeted for 150 trees, which would do a significant amount of good in the community. That would probably go into phase 2 and phase 3.
So, yeah, so I'm still struggling here to how to put this together. Are you saying then that the 100K that you're asking for is for phase 2, not for phase 1?
Phase 2, and probably we could get it in with phase 3 as well. It would probably cover everybody for this fiscal year, remaining after what we've already got planned for phase 1.
Yeah, yeah, because, and also in looking at your spreadsheet, trying to understand is there's no clear delineation of what, from a point of view of commercial, is being addressed in phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3. It's just, you just have a list of commercial people there, or entities, I should say.
Yeah, so because we had received the commercial properties, that was more of a, we met most of those at the community meetings. A significant amount of those are not even rebuilt yet. So it would be first, it would go in the amount, or the properties that are already existing. We've got, you know, I've had folks from the tribal council reach out, Grace Bush, she was interested with, we've also had people from the sacred burial grounds out on North Arm. So those ones are probably would be prioritized as they are starting to rebuild and be finished, things like that. However, they have some pretty specific needs, as in the native trees and specific rituals that would go with that. Any kind of tree planting and entering properties, things like that. So we're making sure we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we're respecting those areas, as well as property owners who are still trying to get their permitting to get rebuilt. So they're on there to make sure that they don't get forgotten and slip through the cracks. And we want to make sure that when their time comes, we will be there to assist them with this. So what you're seeing is the private residences, that's kind of as they're popping up, that's going to be our main concern. The existing businesses that we already have that are still standing. Nels was one of those, you know, they were interested in some trees and things like that. However, they were one of the very first businesses back. I've got Kaylee in here who was interested with Riley's jerky. However, we already have his trees, so you should see those going in this really shortly, as soon as we get to that Highway 89 stretch. So we've got a lot of local businesses signed up that are, you know, they're rebuilding, they're trying to make the community a better place, they're trying to come back, and that's what you see on that spreadsheet. It's probably not that spreadsheet that I sent you is more for my own information, my own organization. So it's not as organized as you would like to probably see it, but that's kind of where those lines are drawn.
Yeah, well, I'm really trying to quantify the number of private residences and none of the commercial entities that are in phase 1, and thereby come up with a number of trees and look at, you know, that cost is your $63,000 covering phase 1. And I guess that's just want to make sure I understand that. And anybody who's not in phase one, and if we look at, because I see like 30 private entities in phase one. And then you got a list for another 15 and additional, maybe that's generous, and maybe only another 11 additional private properties at this point for phase two. Is that correct? Am I looking at this correct?
Yeah.
And so
I want to
So-
say you're probably looking at an old spreadsheet that I sent prior.
well, so do you have more than an
As well,
additional-
we do. Yes, we have multiple signups. I received probably 2 just today. So I have to put those in. I have another spreadsheet that I believe that I had forwarded that would show I had an additional like 10 signups put on there. I don't know if you received that or which one you're looking at per se. The $45,000 from the Arbor Day and FedEx collectively, yes, that will complete that first phase. That is not that's where I'm asking for the DFC for phase 2, phase 3, and additional funding to help me go along as we go. I did close phase 1. There are no more people in phase 1. We are looking to see if we can. We do have all of their trees purchased and ordered and sitting on a property in Greenville. We're just looking to put them in. At this point, we've been waiting for weather, things like that. So at that point, we're looking on to go to phase 2 and then further as we grow to phase 3.
So, Michaela, the spreadsheet that I sent out is the one that you sent me on April 16th, the day after we met.
Yeah.
In April. So that's the one that I
Yeah,
have.
we've had
that I
a
sent.
significant amount of had a
Okay.
significant amount of signups since then.
So just so what is your give me a hard date for phase 2? What's your phase 2 hard date? When is that started?
So that's kind of where we're looking to see exactly how quickly we can work with all of the setbacks that we received today. We were able to put 12 trees on properties. However, we were not able to complete all of the work with, they had an orientation at 9 a.m. today. I'm going to know a little bit better about our timelines tomorrow. When we really get started, it was kind of like a soft start today, I want to say, and a hard start tomorrow where we'll have all of our materials that we need. There won't be any surprises. Well, I mean, there'll be less surprises, but there won't be any interruptions. So I would say that we should be able to start phase 2 by the end of June.
End of June. Okay. So
And that, yeah, putting it out there a little ways just to give us that extra time. However, I'm hoping that we would be able to get it more close to like the middle of June.
Okay. Let's just be clear in terms of information and additional data that anybody on the steering committee would like to see with regard to the current spreadsheet with regard to the signups, the participants, whether it be private individuals or commercial businesses. If Michaela can clean up her latest and greatest spreadsheet on that, so that would be one item. What additional sources of information would anyone appreciate just to kind of understand better, to Greg, to your point, the business model aspect of it? What else would we like to see here? Yes, Trina.
My comments are that you've done a tremendous amount of work, Michaela, and you've reached out to a lot of resources. And I like the idea of locals helping locals, but at this point we're trying to rebuild several communities, and I'd really love to see more reach out to international or global companies or national companies or tree specialists or other resources, because it's pretty monumental, the work that we're doing. And I think as the DFC, at least me on the steering committee, I'm having a hard time like prioritizing how do we help the community the most. And it feels like there's maybe opportunities, and you're probably very overwhelmed, and it sounds you're in the midst of making it happen. But I really would like to see more outreach to other funders.
On that note, I should probably let you know that the Arbor Day Foundation and they have requested that I speak at the Trees and Utilities Conference in the Community Tree Partnership in Chicago, Illinois this year in September, as well as the Trees and Utilities in Fort Worth, Texas, in November. So I'm, I have reached out to as many national, international, things like that. I have been speaking with people trying to rebuild, in Maui, who's been kind of Lahana Maui, who have been kind of, we've been throwing resources back and forth. We've got California Urban Forestry looking to possibly partner with us on this. They were not able to make our last Friday's meeting, but we're looking to reconnect there. So, I'm trying to definitely get us out there, get the word known. Everybody loves trees. There's a lot of different opportunities for people that are in this kind of work. So, I do constantly look at all prospects, any and all prospects that may get us to go any bit further that we can.
And another source that most people might not think of, and I don't know that they'd be a good source, is like National Audubon, just because creating habitat for birds, even thinking creatively about things like that could be helpful. And also, if you need support, I don't know that most of us are really busy, but it's always good to maybe set up a volunteer day or like groundbreaking at Nell's or at the school or somewhere that we actually have volunteers help do some of that or hard labor as part of that local ownership thing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Danny, you had another question or
Yeah,
comment?
so Michaela, just kind of following up. So the one thing that'd be very good to know and is the number of trees and number of shrubs in phase 1, number of trees and number of shrubs in phase 2 and 3. And I think especially as you said, start tomorrow with your hard start tomorrow, the reality of how many of those shrubs, trees and shrubs can you plant? And so how does that affect your start for phase 2?
Yeah, so originally I had budgeted for it was like I don't have the emails, threads, and everything like that that I had shared with the Arbor Day Foundation. With 15,000 from the Arbor Day Foundation, I had said that we could do probably about 7.5 properties, which would put it to 7 times 4 is 28. I said about 30 trees, and then they included that they were able to find the other funding of $30,000. So I had just kind of tripled that amount. So that being said, properties, it's some people are out there and they're asking us just to put the trees on the properties without using any of our additional materials that came up today. We put, we put trees and shrubs on the property where the local landscapers will be able to go in as they plan around their yards, and they'll plant them instead of us doing the planting, providing the deer fencing, things like that. So the costs and everything, they're going to vary, and I'm not going to know exactly what that looks like until we get all the way through the first phase. So that will be reflected in my reporting, where we can go, how many additional trees can be purchased while we're cutting costs in certain areas. But then we're also spending money in certain areas, such as a daily rental of a trailer or things like that, where it would be more cost effective to just purchase one outright. So, we're grinding away at it. We're doing the best that we can. I was up there and driving cruise around this morning at 6 a.m. and I didn't come back till about 1. And then I got ready for this meeting and everything like that. So I am incredibly swamped right now, but I am more than happy to, kind of adjust. I do have to add the additional people signed up. I do have to go through and collect we have 4 contracts that we have people sign: the care contract, the release of liability, the media release, and the right of entry forms that we require. So I'm also doing all of the administrative side there. So all while trying to train these individuals, I can get those adjusted a little bit, but I can't say that that now is going to be the best time for me to start making any significant changes on the budget or anything besides adding those names in. I do have a project lead who's creating a work map. If you would prefer to see that instead, it's actually really comprehensive. He's got everything listed out, and it looks great. He's going in order from the direction that we're looking to work. So I can see if we could get that sent to you instead.
I think that'd be
Yeah.
great. I'd like
Yeah,
to see that.
I think that'd be helpful, Mickey.
Okay.
Thank you. So just an updated spreadsheet of your applicants. As Danny mentioned, the basic breakdown of trees and shrubs by phase, the overall quantity, and then any additional resources that you have, like the work map, et cetera. And then we'll get those back out. So at this point, are there any additional questions at this time? Then I would recommend that we just table the discussion until the next meeting, May 18th, unless anyone would like to pursue any other action at this time. Or I'm sorry, May 20th, correction, Monday, May 20th. Okay. Michaela, I think that's what we'll go with, those additional few items. As your time permits, or it's not urgent, don't need them tomorrow. Just in the next, our next meeting is Monday, May 20th. So the Wednesday before that is when I typically send items out. So that's going to be Wednesday, the 15th. So any additional information they have before Wednesday, the 15th would be great.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mickey.
Thanks,
All right,
Mike.
team. We continue to move on with the DFC coordinator update. The next item is the Recover California update, also known as CDBG-DR. This is the $500,000 for single family reconstruction, or the $50,000 for single family home mitigation. The mitigation being the items of like defensible space and potential home hardening retrofits. So first off, I just got an update today from one of the program representatives. She shared with us that right now there's an overall of what they're tracking. 38 total applications have been submitted through the Recover California portal. Of those 38 applications, 10 are inactive. Inactive just means that an applicant has started it, but they haven't really touched it to come back and add any additional information. So after a certain amount of time, they put it into this column as of inactivity. One of the ways to kind of get after that is working with that team at Recover California, and both the disaster case managers from PRS and Northern Valley Catholic Social Services that may actually be working with individuals that have started their applications and kind of kickstart that process again. So overall, it looks like right now for the single family reconstruction, there are 17 active applicants, and for the single family mitigation, single family mitigation, it's 11 active applicants. This Friday, this will be the second iteration. Every 2 weeks is the timeline that hopefully we'll stick to, is that the case manager from Recover California will be here from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. right here in our office to sit, answer questions, help people get their applications filled out, and just be a point of contact, all things related to these grants. So push that out today via Facebook and email. The email will go out today at 5:30. And then also so that's Friday. The following day, the Plumas Fire Safe Council is hosting a wildfire preparedness event in coordination with the Children's Fair. So that's this Saturday at the Plumas Sierra Fairgrounds in Quincy from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And Recover California will also have representatives there really to just engage the community and explain the program. Probably not necessarily have the means right there and then to get people enrolled, but at least be able to make some connection to do that. But been advertising this. the DCMs, whether or not somebody is in disaster case management or not, have been helpful because they receive the training to, even if anybody that's not in the DCM program still wants somebody to assist them or needs a help or needs a little bit of help getting through the portal. The disaster case managers are available to do that. I'm available to do that as well, at least just to kickstart things. And then having Chris come up here every 2 weeks will help us out as well. And Chris is the case manager from Recover California. So the program has really been live for about 2 months now with better marketing and advertising. Let's call it 6 weeks. And so if we're able to kickstart those inactive applicants again, if we get to so we're at about 38 total applicants. A rough number that was shared with me from the outset was trying to get about 100 applicants for, regardless of the program that people are pursuing, either the $50,000 for home hardening mitigation or the single family reconstruction. So if we're sitting at about 30 to 40% of that right now after about 6 weeks, that's okay. But really going to try to beat the drum to get this information out. The Plumas Firewise, working with them to get particularly the home hardening mitigation program communicated through them as well, because they have a comparable grant that they're going to be kickstarting here in the next several months that would do the same. So this could be a good sort of proof of concept for them to kind of see how that can go, of just getting their own community engagement wired tightly to get the information out. So I'll be presenting this information tomorrow at the Board of Supervisors meeting as well, just to keep them aware, and then just kind of shouting it from the rooftops. Any questions on that right now? Okay. RSF update. So met again last Friday. Yeah, last Friday. Once again to meet with some of the different groups and organizations around the recovery support function. And we went back through the projects, the 27 projects, to see if there needed to be any amendments or changes. Got most of the way through them. Gonna do another iteration on May 23rd. And all this is leading into the what will be the final county recovery report that Plumas County will publish hopefully this summer. Another piece that we've been working on are the community profiles and spotlights. I think I mentioned that at the last meeting because that was the focus of effort in the March meeting. And so, yeah, just work continues to get that done sooner than later. So we're going to meet again on May 23rd to round out the project scopes, so that those are at least by this point probably fairly, they're ironclad, right? That there's not going to be too many changes to them at this point, so that they can be added into the overall report. Lastly, the community meeting is coming up on this Saturday. I think Marcia, I have you down. Oh, Marcia stepped away from, that's all right. I'll follow up here in a second. But for the community meeting, have asked Adam Cox from the Indian Valley Community Services District to give a rundown on some of the projects that the IVCSD is working on, and just keeping people informed with anything they might be seeing this summer, and then some of their bigger projects over the next year that they're starting to make some headway on, like the Greenville Safety Center, and their potential involvement with the community center. So, Marcia, you stepped away for a moment, but I just wanted to confirm that you're on tap for the May community meeting to be our steering committee host and presenter. So I will not be out of town this one. I'll be there as well, but it'd be great to have you kind of running the show and introducing folks. Taylor's working on the rest of the presenters. So IVCSD will be a big one, and then also working with the National Park Service, Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. Betsy Byrne, our lead project manager from that organization, they will have 2 park concepts fairly ready to go to present as sort of option A and option B. And then associated surveys to go with both of them. And the surveys are both electronic and paper and everything in between. And then we'll have a pretty decent, probably 60 to 90-day timeline to distribute those surveys and get that feedback back. So that's something that we're looking to do in May as well. Betsy just sent me the basic concepts for those today, and then we're meeting on Thursday to discuss them. So I'll have more info at our next meeting. And next meeting is going to be after the community meeting. But the next time that we see Betsy, I think she's going to come in town for it and not do it virtually, so that she can kind of talk to people and get any feedback and ideas rolled in right there at the meeting. And then we'll just keep iterating and get something ready for at least approval by the end of the summer, so that we can start figuring out how to go out and pay for it. With the CSD being the champion for it. That's all that I have right now. Are there any questions on any of those topics? Comments? Okay, thank you. Danny, I was going to turn it over to you for anything you wanted to provide as a treasurer's update this month.
Yeah, actually, I know, Patrick, could you grab up that narrative that I sent out, that I emailed out, and I could just talk to that?
Yeah, no problem. You want me to just share it?
Yeah, if you just share that and rather than swapping back and forth with me. Because I've got the long form which people can look at, but I think the narrative is going to allow me to just kind of quickly talk about that. I think everybody should have gotten that. Can you find it, Patrick? Should have warned you.
Yeah. Yep. I got it right here.
Okay. So just kind of as he's looking to pull that up, we received $5,942.29 in interest, which did increased the total inflow. But of that 5,942 in interest that we received, actually the net result of that, if we just jump down, look at item 6 there. So our outflow, so of that $2,439.90 was increased. So that we have so we expended $2,439.90 in expenses, which actually gives us that on 7, that line item actually increased by $3,502.39. And if you look back, we're hovering between 53% of our income going out and outflow. So we received interest, but that interest had the net effect of increasing funds available by $3,502.39. So that's like kind of quick summary of that. If we go in and start looking at where did that money go, we had no changes to grants. We had expenditures. Oh, we lost it. Yeah. We could go back the other way. But we had the expenditures. Yeah, but the other ones are kind of better. People can look at that later if we just look at the narrative. So we had the website overhaul for $720, Zoom subscription fee, it's a yearly, so it's $159.90, and a tech expenditure of $720 with the total expenditures here. And actually, I'm realizing that looking at that neglects the expenditure due to our secretarial support is not in there. So I'll have to update that. But that's where basically it was our expenditures there, which that's one of the big changes that we had as opposed to just the interest. So interest, and then we had that $2,439 in expenditures. That's where it comes from. And if we do switch to that other sheet, everybody can pull that up and actually you can see kind of the details. I kind of lined out in yellow there and what those changes were. So that's the detail there. So hopefully that's digestible for everybody and makes some sense. And the one thing too is I did get some inquiries on people were asking where the money had gone and such, and where the expenses. And I'm not sure that they've been able to actually to look at this sheet that I send out that actually Sherry's put together, and I'm just trying to propagate and keep it together, as accounts for where the expenditures at, where the grants have been, you know, who's asked for the grants, whose money has been allocated for the grants. And I think really what maybe some people would like to see more is what happened, you know, what were the outcome with that money? I think that's kind of a suggestion that we've had, a request we've had from people. It's like, yeah, so the Hope Crisis got, you know, $59,825. What happened? What was the result of that? You know, a report out, I guess, is really kind of what I think some people have asked for.
That's, you know, so this was the spreadsheet that I put up on the website. Can you see it now? Am I sharing that?
Yeah, I see that. Yeah. So that's
Right.
what's been issued, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I put the description and reason
Right.
with each one of them. So what was this, if there was a specific question around it? Right now, Hope Crisis Response Network is trying to debate on whether or not their program will fit our needs here, because between both the PG&E settlements and then the potential for this Recover California grant, their program of what they build houses for, it may not fit this environment. However, like the work that they did at Copper Creek for this right here, this is the potential housing program that's going to house like the AmeriCorps volunteers this summer, to where like that's going to be free lodging for volunteers that are supporting like recovery efforts, right? And then that'll be in place for 2 years.
Right.
So stuff like that.
Yeah, I think, you know, this is great, Patrick, but I think also what people want is basic your explanation there. What, you know, so this says this is the reason, but what is the actual on the grounds, what happened and what phases are things that in that?
Okay.
So,
I'll see if I can put something else in here that like links to something, or maybe a picture or something.
Right, that's kind of per item, you know, that's the insight that people have, and they can really understand where those funds have gone, you know, rather than just a label.
Okay.
I think that's at least that's the questions I'm getting asked. So
okay,
it's good. It's good.
Yes, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, earlier we were talking about workforce housing being the priority, and I'm looking at Copper Creek getting money for workforce housing. And are there any workers living there now?
No, there aren't, not right now. Nope. Because there was, the dream was, you know, as I understand, back to like when that money got approved, that Hope Crisis Response Network was going to have anywhere between 6 to 10 people come to build houses. But Hope Crisis Response Network may not be able to build any houses here based off of where their nonprofit works. So we're still kind of watching and waiting. You know, you go through PG&E settlements. If somebody got a PG&E settlement, doesn't work for their program, someone's able to take advantage of the Recover California single family reconstruction, that doesn't fit with Hope Crisis Response. So then kind of like the next level is if Hope Crisis Response can build a house for somebody that basically lost it all, they had no insurance or they were underinsured, and they have no other financial means to rebuild their home. That's the type of work that Hope Crisis Response does. So it's still trying to determine who or what that population is, to see if HCRN can build a home or build homes. And, you know, the projection could be half a dozen, like 6 homes, maybe. Because right now they're finishing up their time in Paradise. And after, coming up on 6 years post campfire, they've built about 15 homes in Paradise. And so they project that they're going to be done there sometime this summer. And then they'll kind of take a look at what the need is here. But it's trying to get as many people enrolled in the single family reconstruction program through Recover California, because if people are able to do that, then we may not need or Hope Crisis Response. They may move on somewhere else, but the ability to have volunteers or anybody else stay at Copper Creek in 6 winterized cabins could still be there for free. For any other
that's a commitment, like that's a signed commitment. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So that's a memorandum of understanding that Copper Creek has with Plymouth Strong, who were the grantees. That it wouldn't just be, so initially it was for HCRN personnel, but now that it looks like it's not going to be HCRN, it's the definition got broadened to be, volunteer support entities focused on the recovery effort. So like AmeriCorps coming this summer can stay there for free without incurring any additional expenses. And then there's other groups, if there's other groups, they can do the same. And the agreement with them is that once the project was done, it was basically a 2-year timeline. So Copper Creek would allow people to stay there for 2 years after the project is done. So HCRN is nearing completion on enclosing a bathroom to make it winterized, like a bathhouse, so that they have the cabins got done. There are 6 cabins that were winterized, so they were insulated and then provided a mini split for both heat and air conditioning. The kind of a limiting factor was that the bathhouses, they have their parts of them are exposed to the elements, so they usually get shut down in the winter. So then it became an issue that if you have a winterized cabin, but you don't have a winterized bathhouse where somebody can take a warm shower or wash their hands even, etc., one kind of goes with the other. So HCRN is enclosing one bathhouse to be able to do that. And then once they're done, that's when the 2-year clock starts, that Copper Creek's on the hook to provide free lodging for volunteer or other groups supporting the recovery.
All right, that's good to know. Danny, is that what you were thinking in terms of results that you want to have in your spreadsheet? Is that kind of information?
I'm not looking to provide those results. I'm just looking to make sure there's a place for people to go to see that, because I'm getting questions and I just think that, and we talked about this before, it's not the first time we talked about this, about having some results and some reporting which is available for people to see. So I'm just kind of restating the need for that, because I've continued to get asked questions. So
yeah, I'll add in like a link or something there that has a little bit more of like a summary.
Yeah.
Anything else on the treasurer's report?
No, that's it.
All right. Thank you, Danny. All right. We'll now move on to committee member updates. And I'll just start my top left. Lyda, do you have anything that you'd like to share with the team?
Nope, nothing new.
Okay. Paula, anything for the team?
Just one thing, we received our demobilization plan from FEMA to start the shutdown of disaster case management. It ends August 24th.
Okay. Thank you for that. Danny, anything else? Okay. Marcia, anything for the team?
I submitted my application to Firewise for the Williams Valley, Pex Valley roads, and they came back and said, we want you to find out how much each property owner, how many cubic yards of yard waste did they get rid of this year? So I've been working on that, calling people, talking to people.
I know that for the Williams Valley component. I know that that's an ask that you had of our area, Marcia, so we'll get that to you. Sorry about that.
No, Carissa got it to me.
Oh, she did. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. One less thing. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's like, yeah, there's all those questions like dollar amounts and cubic yards. Yeah. Good luck. All right. But it's great. Thank you for doing that, Marcia.
You're welcome.
Greg, anything for the team? No, good. I may have missed that. Okay. Trina, anything for the steering committee? Any updates?
Yeah, just the Plymouth County Fire Safe Council board meeting is on Thursday, and the public part of it, I'm sorry, I was just trying to look it up. I'm still looking it up. We end up having a 3-hour board meeting every month, and the first part starts at 9, and the second part, which includes the FireWise committees and committee updates and some really great information that people here might be interested in, I believe starts at 10 or 11. And I can send that to you, Patrick, or send it out.
I'll send it out to everybody. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I am going to follow up and contact National Audubon myself, just to maybe help Michaela out.
Great. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Trina. Shelby, anything for the steering committee?
We're still on track to have the ribbon cutting for Roundhouse Council on June 20th. And everyone of you are invited to that. Of course, the DFC contributed funding to helping Roundhouse Council rebuild. So each of you are invited to that day, June 20th at 1 p.m.
Great. Thank you for that, Shelby. And I meant to follow up with you again. A district representative from Congressman Kiley's office. She was here, I guess now 2 weeks ago, Pam Grant. And Congressman's going to be in Plymouth County on either the 17th or 18th. They're still kind of batting around ideas. So he's not going to be able to be present on the day of the actual ribbon cutting. However, if he's in town, they would like to try to get like a sneak peek if the situation presents itself. So I'll follow up with you to see if that can be scheduled. And really probably best to go direct to Pam, like either you or somebody else from the Roundhouse, just to lay it flat and make sure that nothing is confusing or anything.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Cool. All right. Yes, Lida, you have your hand up?
Oh, I just, with respect to Congressman Kiley, was there any more news about the legislation regarding the taxable?
So nothing with Kiley. So that, the House, they did their piece and they did pass their component of that bill back at the end of January. And the rest of it has been sitting with the Senate. Actually, they're kind of hot off the presses. So after the fire, they've been working on this a lot. And so I reshared a post that they had last week, and I'm actually going to reshare another one. The hang up on the Senate's portion of the tax bill has nothing to do with this wildfire exemption piece. This is, yet another small nugget that's buried in a larger piece of legislation that the Senate needs to pass. And the hang up in the Senate has been deliberation on the child tax credit, right? So that's been the real showstopper. So what some of the House members are trying to do is decouple this specific issue from that larger tax bill so that it would get essentially passed again by the House as is. And kind of a good thing is that since it was already passed, apparently there's this parliamentary item that there can be no amendments or changes to it at this time, right? So that's actually a good thing because it alleviates some of the back and forth that would inevitably happen. Like, oh yeah, well, we're going to throw this onto it now, right? And then slow it up again. So there's some optimism that if they can just decouple it, because it's not only survivor tax settlements for the Dixie Fire, it's a whole host of other fires, plus other disasters, to include the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment issue, to include some hurricanes and so on and so forth. So it has, in that regard, it's not just regionally focused, it's nationally focused, with plenty of bipartisan support in the various districts that were affected by various disasters over the last couple of years. So, yeah, that's where that is sort of.
Great. Yeah. Well, that's what I didn't know what happened when it hit the Senate. So
Yeah, clear as mud once again.
great. Okay.
So hopefully there's some more action. I'll let me see if I can pull that up. And I'll repost it, and then I'll send like a screenshot or something, just so that. But yes, after the fire, that's been kind of like the focus of their advocacy for a while now. Yeah.
Great.
So,
Thank you for that. That's very helpful.
and that was as of this morning. So it's called a discharge petition, and it dislodges the disaster piece from the tax bill for a standalone vote. That's the terminology. All right. Any additional, Kaylee? Looks like Kaylee had to bow out, so no problem. Any additional updates or comments from the steering committee? All right, and with that, at 4:40 p.m., may I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Trina. May I have a second?
I'll second it, Lida.
Ida? And all in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Any opposed?
I like that we're
No.
waving to everyone. Sorry.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time and attention, and see somebody at the community meeting. And then our next meeting will be on May 20th, Monday, May 20th.
Okay.
For the
Have a nice evening.
Okay, thanks all.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.